Thank you. How's it going, guys? That is an afternoon crowd. You guys, Steve, have you guys heard of Reddit?
Still an afternoon crowd.
Yeah, still definitely. What is Reddit? Don't answer that. Steve, what is Reddit?
Oh, I was afraid. I was going to say, don't make me answer that either. We've been trying to figure that out for the better part of a decade. But here's where we are today. Reddit it's home to some of the most passionate people online. We're home to thousands of communities that cover pretty much every interest or passion or topic that you may want to talk about or share things about. So, and our mission is to bring community and belonging to the whole world.
I love it. Love it. So take me back to the early days. Everybody thinks of, these, unicorns as like overnight successes. Tell me about your overnight success with Reddit.
Well, our overnight success has we're coming up on 13 years now.
Okay. It's a little longer than
we've had a roundabout path. And it's funny because Reddit doesn't pattern match well to a lot of successful companies. And I think that's okay, but it also is like this thing I have going in the back of my mind whenever I'm talking in places like this or I'm talking to young entrepreneurs about their companies. And because if I would say, if your company looked like Reddit did 2 years in, I'd be like, maybe you should think about doing something else. So I think it just goes to show that there are many paths of success.
So what did it look at? 2 years into Reddit, 24 months, what did this company look like?
Well, at that point, we had already sold the company.
Okay.
So we started, Alexis, my college roommate and I, we started the company in 2005.
Yeah.
We sold the company after 18 months.
Okay.
Actually 17 months.
Yeah.
We were 4 people when we sold the company. 2 years in, we were still, I think, 4 people.
Okay.
Or close to it.
Who did you sell to?
Condé Nast.
Condé Nast.
The magazine publisher.
Yep.
Who actually owns a lot of other stuff. And 2 years in, we had a traffic. I don't think we had subreddits yet. So we basically had like maybe 10 communities.
Yep.
Just 4 of us. And we were really, at that point, we were still in the stage of work where we didn't know really what we were doing. We just knew kind of how we were doing it, which was every day we would build. We had users. We had real users, of course, right? And so we would just build what was fun for us, what was fun for the users.
But you had funding at this point.
Well, we were acquired, so we had
AKA funding.
We had a stable
you had a steady paycheck.
Yes,
right?
yeah. I was a salaried engineer at Condé Nast. But we just kind of follow the users, and so it led. In one sense, we had kind of a bit of a meandering existence, but on the other, because we were building what the users wanted every day, we had this really loyal core, this really solid foundation upon which the rest of the company has grown over the years.
So do you feel that acquisition helped you to make the company into the powerful company that it is today? Yeah,
sure. I'm not sure. I've often gotten like shades of that question, like, do you regret selling? Do you think it was the right thing to do, this or that? I don't know if I like hypotheticals like that, or it's not a good use of time to think through them. But I look back and I think on, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
We didn't have a mission or a vision yet for the company,
Yep.
which is one of the reasons why we sold so early anyway. Because we're like, well, we don't really know what we're doing, and somebody's going to give us money for this, right? Seems like a good deal.
Yeah.
But even still, I think it took time for us to develop, both as people, as managers, as leaders, as just product people, knowing what we were building. Yeah. And Condé gave us a kind of a good, safe place to learn a lot of those lessons.
Yeah. So in the beginning, how long were you like a 4 or 5 person team?
Oh gosh, for the first 5 years, really.
So five years. That's
So when we sold the company in 2006.
Yep.
Alexis and I left in 2009. We had contracts from the acquisition, and we left at the end of those because a part of our thinking was like, it seemed like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to sell your company and then leave.
Yeah. Here we are.
Right. And when I left, we were 6 people.
Okay, so I mean, just something for the audience to really recognize is that like you hear of all these unicorns and stuff like that. I even had an interview earlier on stage today where, the person was like, hey, after 3 years, we stop funding companies. And that's not the case for you guys, because had you, after 3 years, you looked at this, evaluated it, might have had a much different result.
Yeah, and it probably would have been difficult to raise money from, I think, the standard set of VCs 3 years into Reddit.
Yeah.
Because we were growing, yes, but we didn't look like Reddit of today, and we weren't growing like a hockey stick. We were just growing, a little bit faster than linearly. Yeah. So, in fact, our growth has always been that way. But 13 years of it starts to add up.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, I think, as an entrepreneur, is make this evaluation of, is my company working or not? I mean, sometimes it's really, really obvious, but for the 90% of companies where it's not, I think it requires this combination of high enough ego and grit to know that okay, it may not look like success, but I know there's success here, and I'm going to keep working. Yep. At the same time, enough humility and self-awareness to say, you know what? It's not the right time. I should do something else, and I'm going to have to give up on this idea. I think that's actually one of the hardest decisions to make.
So tell me about building a community. Reddit, in my opinion, has one of the strongest communities out there. People in all these different subreddits and all these different communities out there that are truly committed to what they're doing. How did you build up such a strong community even from the beginning? Because it seems like it really started off as a strong community for people. So how did you foster that and build it over time, even with the iterations?
Sure. I don't think of it as building the community, because the community really built itself. And I've always been uncomfortable taking credit for it, but we were definitely there when it happened. And
but at the same time, you did build what they were, they might have built it themselves, but you guys still built what they needed to and innovated in ways that would help improve that community aspect.
So we did make some decisions that in hindsight I think worked out really well. One was we had this idea, and it was funny because Alexis and I, we didn't talk about it. We weren't strategic about this, but I do think we were very conveniently aligned on this notion that we should allow communities to grow on their own, right? We're at most we're shepherds, but for the most part, in the early days of Reddit, it was important to us that we let things go. And one of the things that we always let stay on the site and on the front page was criticism of us. And what that accomplished was it added an authenticity. A genuineness to what we were doing. So even though we'd wake up and there'd be a criticism about the Reddit itself or the product itself, that lent credibility to everything else on the site. Yeah. And this was really important because we were also coming of age in an era and with a generation of our users that felt like, it was the same time cable news really started flourishing, right? And so we had this sense, and I think a lot of our users did too, of everything is bullshit. I'm being lied to all the time. And on Reddit, you may not have loved everything you read, but you knew it was real. Yeah. And that's still something that is really important to us now. And so when we describe Reddit as the most human place on the internet, that's what we mean. It's it's not always pretty. I think most of the time it's positive and pretty and fun and interesting and funny and whatever, but it's really real and genuine, and I think that's really important. And it's hard to find that online or even in the real world, just realness.
So speaking about negative things, do you remember one specific time where somebody was said something that really cut you down as a founder?
Oh gosh, yes.
Has anybody else had that? Somebody say something negative about them? I have.
Constantly. It was
daily, hourly.
Well, because we were in the first class of Y Combinator.
Yep.
And there was only 8 companies there.
What's that?
So Y Combinator.
I'm just joking. I know what Y Combinator is.
Do you all know what YC is?
Do you guys know what YC is?
So YC
you weren't
these
born
days
under a rock.
is the largest seed stage investment company, right?
Yep.
They probably do 400 or so investments a year. Well, in 2005, they did 8 that first summer. But it was founded by Paul Graham. Paul Graham had a pretty big following, and they went through this public kind of interview process, and when it was revealed what the companies were, and we were the first company to launch, and people were like, all of this hoopla about YC and this is what we get is Reddit, right? That was a constant theme of this is the best YC can do.
That probably Paul.
And even we'd hear that from Paul.
Yeah.
You know, he'd be like, guys, like, this is not very good.
Did he have any like private conversations where he's like, hey guys, we really need to rethink our lives?
You know, he didn't frame it like that. In hindsight, it was highly motivating, but he definitely, I think, kept us, you know, I've learned this, there are many management styles. He definitely was you know, by nature, he's a very optimistic person, but he can definitely be really, really judgy.
Yes. Yes.
And so the two would play off. Like he'd say something to me that like would make me feel bad, or just like this is not very good. But then he'd follow up with like, but it could be so much better, and here's how, blah 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 blah. And so we always had these like really kind of sometimes
product
difficult
is
but
complete
engaging
crap, but
conversations.
you are doing a great job at that. Something like that.
More the other way around. The product is crap, but it could be really incredible. And
Okay. All right. Good.
You know, there's always a way out. So anyway, I can't remember what we were talking about. Those were the early days. We faced a lot of criticism from everybody, including ourselves.
So how did you, when you're reiterating the product, continue to foster that community? Also, like how do you just unleash a community? Because how many in this audience, like, it would, like, you release people to write anything they want about your home on your homepage? Who would do that here?
Well, you should.
I do not. I saw like three hands, and they were like clear down here. So those aren't real hands. These are real hands. I would not do that. Like, but that truly does create that like trust and like no filtering, as you were kind of saying.
Well, there are a couple of dimensions to this.
Yeah.
First, if you have a small company like we did back then, the fact that anybody is willing to write anything about you, like that fact that somebody's willing to set time aside to think about you is really important. And even if it's criticism, it should be complimentary in some dimension. And the second part is Reddit did have in the beginning while we didn't have moderators, it did have a natural kind of moderation system in voting.
Yeah.
And it did have kind of community norms and sensibilities. So things that were, you know, unproductive generally didn't surface. So the stuff that we saw was generally, you know, if it was about us, was probably actionable. Maybe it wasn't always articulated great, but it was definitely actionable.
Yeah, but a lot of it was anonymous. So how did you deal with, like, I feel a lot of people in the audience, including myself to some degree, feel that anonymous is very, very equal to a troll. And there's a lot of trolling going on, but that's not really the case. Anonymous shouldn't be that way.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of shades. There's a lot of space and identity. And so we talk about pseudonymous a lot, which is like, on Reddit, you are not required to use your real-world identity. And we think that's really important, right? Because when you detach yourself from your name or your job and all of kind of the motives and expectations that come with those things, it's freeing and allows you to be yourself. And so when I talk about Reddit being one of the most human places on the internet, that's one of the ways we do it, is we allow people to be themselves without having it come back to them. Now, of course, you can add your identity to it if you want, right? If you're doing an AMA and you're like the president, you can say like, hey, I'm the president. And that, you know, that's important to the AMA you're doing in that moment. And then also there's, I think, an idea of reputation.
Yeah.
And on Reddit, it may not be attached to your real-world identity, but you do have a reputation, right? And so we've got this karma score that accumulates with you. You do have a name, a screen name that you can make up. And you're free to make more, of course. But that reputation is important. And that history is important. And so there is some amount of accountability. And then, of course, on top of that, there are the community norms, right? So if you go to some of the truly anonymous forums where there's no moderation, yeah, you can get people behaving really badly. But on Reddit, we actually see the opposite. It allows people to share things they wouldn't otherwise share, to be vulnerable in a way that they wouldn't otherwise be vulnerable, right? You know, something we see on Reddit really commonly in a number of our communities is, hey, I'm gay and I don't know how to tell my parents.
Yeah.
Right? How do I do that? Right? I'm in high school. I don't know how to talk to my friends about this. Well, you can turn to Reddit and find thousands of people, millions of people who have had that experience and can help you through that. And we think that is really important for people.
Yeah. So if you're to start Reddit, you didn't start Reddit. You're to start Reddit today. How would that look?
Oh my goodness.
Because it's a totally different generation. Now you have millions of users, hundreds of millions of users.
Hundreds of millions, yeah.
And like you have that built up, all that credibility. If you were to start this over again, how would you start?
You're saying me, Steve, if I were to start over again?
You, Steve.
Oh gosh, I wouldn't do that. That's torture. Gosh, it's been so hard. I'm so tired. I cannot do that to myself again.
Start Reddit.
That's a 20-year-old's game.
This is like textbook, like big business saying, "Hey, don't start my competitor." No, but like in general, what mistakes did you make that like you wouldn't make now?
Okay, I'll put it this way. There are many mistakes, and I'll try to share a few, but no doubt there'd be a new set of mistakes that I'd make. And right, that is, I think, one of the really important things about growing up is learning from mistakes, and hopefully being intentional about your work and considering. I think whenever you're making a big decision, I actually think it's really important to consider, what if this is a mistake? What would we do?
Yeah.
Right. That is supremely important. Just having a backup plan. But I mean, we didn't know the first thing about anything, and a lot of my mistakes that I think a lot about now are on the kind of personal maturation. Right. How do I talk to people? How do I manage people? How do I like articulate what we want to do, and you know how to lead people and get them to do things, and thinking about the culture and values of our company, and really get people to make decisions consistently across the company. And so, but I've had so many missteps and angered people and lost good employees, and failed at recruiting other great ones because of my own ability to communicate with people. So that's I think there's just so much there that I've learned, especially in the past couple of years. That's really, really important.
How do you get rid of bad actors?
How do we get rid of bad actors? Well, first step is identifying what the behavior is. And this is actually...
Automated? Or in general, just identifying it?
No, conceptually. This is a bad behavior.
Conceptually.
And then I'll take it outside of Reddit for a second. How do you... Anytime somebody has a bad behavior, is you don't reward bad behavior. You give negative consequences to bad behavior, and you give positive consequences to good behavior. So and that's how you train a dog, and that's how you work with people.
So users are like
right.
You heard it here. No.
If all of our users were dogs, the world would be a better place.
Interesting. Interesting.
Well, dogs always see the positive in everything. That's what's so great about dogs is they're optimists.
That's true.
Most of our user base, they're cats.
This sits and lick themselves all day long, and
they just nap all day and wake up and judge something. So how do we get rid of bad actors on Reddit? Well, it's really kind of go through that process I just said. So, okay, what's the bad behavior? How can we create negative consequences for doing that? Whether it's rejection by the community, whether it's getting punished, like timed out or banned by us, or just getting downvoted to oblivion, those are all good things. How do we reward good behavior? Like, what content gets voted up? What content gets rewarded? Like, how do people on Reddit, like what makes them tick? The content creators, it's generally some sort of social validation and feeling like they helped somebody or were thanked for what they did in the form of either votes or actual literal laughs or whatever. And so try to create those situations where the positive is rewarded.
Yeah. So when you're positively rewarding the behavior, how does that happen? I guess more so, what do you do with a person that's been around for a very long time, acted good behavior, and then all of a sudden they freak out at a situation or treat something very unlike them?
Well, this happens at work all the time and in life all the time. So somebody freaks out at work, right? And they're really unprofessional. Well, you think, okay, I've known this person for 3 years. They've never done that before. Yep. So say, hey, first time out, and then what's going on? Is there something else? Look for a reason, right? Is there something going on? Do they having trouble with their family? Are they not getting enough sleep? Are they stressed about something else, right? And if you have a 3-year, long-term relationship with somebody, I think it's totally reasonable to give them a little space and to figure out what's going on. Now, do they have a habit of doing that? And sometimes it doesn't even matter the cause. Maybe there is something going on in their personal life that's causing them to make a habit of this bad behavior. Well, then now we've got a problem. right? Because just because there's a reason for it doesn't mean it's acceptable. And so then you have to take kind of further steps. And so on the site, it goes the same way. You know, we might start out with a warning, and then our methods of enforcement kind of escalate from there. But hopefully, by the time we get to banning a user, they've had a few chances and some time to kind of to get back to a better place. Now, we haven't always had, in terms of user enforcement, we actually haven't had those tools for most of Reddit's life. It's been a major effort over the last 2 years, and it's had a really strong effect. Like, we're getting a lot better, and we're seeing a lot less kind of repeat bad behavior. But without those tools, it's really tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough, and that's why, you know, if you look at over Reddit's history, we've definitely had time in the past where bad behavior would spiral and take over a community, and those, it becomes much more difficult to unwind, which is why I think it's so important to stay ahead of it.
Yeah, so I recently did an AMA. Anybody in here done an AMA on Reddit? A couple hands in the audience. I see a lot of people doing them on Reddit. It's awesome. It was a really great experience. How can people really, really get the most out of that and like actually grow their own community within Reddit? Yeah,
so I think, again, what works best on Reddit is genuineness. And so when you do an AMA, it's really coming like, are you really being open and answering honestly? Reddit...
I assume not self-promotional as well.
Well,
or self-promotional.
There's a finesse game there, right? Not self-promoting is a great place to start, but some people are charming enough to pull it off. But I think, again, it has to be really genuine.
I was not charming enough.
I always just think it comes down to honesty. Like, and we see a lot of AMAs where somebody will say, like, hey, blah, 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 I'm such and such, like, you know, ask me anything. By the way, I'm here to promote a book. Even just saying I'm here to promote a book, people are like, okay, cool, right? Everybody's got to make a living.
At least he's honest, yeah.
But if that person said, hey, you know, I'm here to do an AMA and didn't mention that, didn't set expectations, and then wove the book into all of their ansers, now you feel like, okay, I'm being
used.
And so
that cat comes out.
There's a fine line there. So I think. And this works really well in the real world, by the way, because I think Reddit is really a reflection of the world of being genuine and honest. And it's okay to have a job. It's okay to promote something. It's okay to sell something. It's not okay to try to take advantage of people.
Yeah. So looking back on you and your experience as an entrepreneur, going from selling a company, leaving a company, coming back to the company, being terrified to come back to the company, thinking it might be the last day ever of the site, what would be your number one advice to all the entrepreneurs in the room that are struggling business owners, that are trying to build up a community, it's not working? What would be your advice to those people?
I give this piece of advice often in this context. It's, you know, life is long, business is long. It's, you know, you'll have many opportunities after this one. So whether your company succeeds or not, you'll probably have another shot at it. And so I think it really comes down to stress management. And, you know, when things feel overwhelming and you feel like it's just not working out, like taking a step back and thinking, okay, is it really not working out? And I personally just sometimes just write it all out, right? It's not working for these reasons. It could be working for these reasons. Is there a realistic way to connect these dots? And sometimes when things get really overwhelming, and this was the situation for me when I came back to the company in 2015, and the user base was in open revolt, the employees were really unhappy, the press was just like murdering us.
They were murdering you.
Yeah, right. Thanks, guys. Some of it fair, to be fair. Yeah. Some of it whatever. It's the press.
Needed.
You know, that's how it goes.
It helped you get the job. You know, helped you come back.
Okay, totally think of it that way, but I suppose you could connect the dots. But I think in those moments, the way I always think about it is, you know what? I have had low points in my life before.
Yeah.
And between that last low point and this one, there was a bunch of high points. And so between this one and the next one, there's going to be a bunch of high points as well. And so time marches forward, and I'm just going to get through this and enjoy the view from the top when we get back there.
Thanks, you guys. Steve.
Thank you.